Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of Stop, Look, and Listen. I'm your host, LeTroy Gardner. This week, we got the guy that is playing Fabian in a new movie somewhere in Montana. We got Matt Drago. Welcome to the show, Matt.
LeTroy, thank you so much for having me on your show today. This is going to be a blast.
Oh yeah. Okay, so like I said, you're starring as Fabian in somewhere in Montana. Where exactly in Montana?
So we actually shot the entire movie in a little town called Polson, Montana. It's right at the base, the south side of Flathead Lake, overlooking those gorgeous mountains. We used the town, you know. We shot at the bars, the churches, the barber shop, the ranch. You know, that was where a lot of the movie took place. And there's a film within the film, so we were shooting, you know, Fabian's film while we were also shooting somewhere in Montana. So it was a very meta experience, you could say, but
Right.
just a beautiful story and a beautiful place to shoot it for sure.
All right. And Fabian is a director.
Fabian is a director. He's a West Coast director, and the basic premise is that he needs this one last location to complete his film, and it's something that I actually just spoke about in another article. Why did it need to be this location? And it's a great question. For a lot of filmmakers, for a lot of people that really want to tell a couple good stories and leave them behind, they have to be perfect. The settings have to be perfect. And John's Ranch, played by my friend Graham McTavish, he has the perfect location for me. But he's from a different world. So the two of us need each other. I need his location, and he needs the money from the production to continue his ranch because he's running into some financial issues. So it's a story of the times and that we are from two different worlds, but we are put in an impossible situation and we have to work our way through it and try to find some mutual respect within that.
Right. Who did you channel for this role? Any directors you've worked with or seen in action that inspired you?
That's a great question. Honestly, I built it from the ground up, and probably for the most part, I would say I channeled the actual director of Somewhere in Montana, my friend Brandon Smith, who wrote it as well. So it was a really unique experience in that we got on Zooms just like we're on today, and we'd go scene by scene by scene, and I started to understand like how he clicked, right? Because a lot of a lot of writers write themselves into characters, and in some ways he wrote himself into the two lead characters of this film in Fabian and John. And so we'd go scene by scene and we would essentially just kind of, it was almost like a case study for me, seeing kind of like what he wanted, because again, these are characters and worlds that he's created. And so going through those scenes with him was a really special time. It was very gratifying because it was almost like we were collaborating and finding the role together, which made it really, really unique in the process of finding my character. Every actor needs to find their own process. I mean, when I wasn't, working on the role with Brandon, I was working on backstories for myself because I felt like Fabian was one of those people that maybe was a little bit, we'll say, like lonely in the way that he was very dedicated to what he was doing on this planet, which was filmmaking, and very proud of that. The people that are his cast and crew are his family, and he honors them and he protects them. And one thing that I wanted to show with this character is that he will go down with his ship. Even though he is an alpha male and he's passionate, and sometimes dramatic, he also really, really deeply cares about everybody on his set. He takes great pride and respect in people feeling safe on his set. So, it was a really great role, and the way that I was able to, construct it opposite someone like Graham was really interesting because it was all the off-screen stuff that really helped Graham and I create the on-screen stuff. We wanted them to be really, really authentic and grounded conversations between two men like we're having right now, and we just wanted it to not feel too precious or too over the top or too dramatic. We wanted it to feel like it was a a powerful conversation that, if I'm being honest, a lot of us need to have right now. And once you can find that, mutual respect for somebody, it's really hard to hate them. And
Mm-hmm.
this story really does a very great. It does an incredible job at showcasing that major through line of this film.
Right. So you talked about how the director sort of used his own life as kind of a starting ground to develop this story. On the opposite end of the token, um, how has this character Fabian kind of rolled over into Matt's life?
It's a great question, LeTroy. I mean, honestly, I have never fell in love with the character. I fell in love with Fabian. I think he's. I think I got to bring a lot of myself to this role, if I'm really being honest. He wants to leave a couple good stories behind. And as Matt, I can say the same thing. It has ignited my ability to do that. I have a production company, Dragon Hunter Productions. I'm working on my first feature film right now with my partner and my wife, who is a talented writer. She's won a couple awards, for podcast scripts at Austin Film Festival, and she's also won actually a couple awards in Virginia for this Christmas movie that she's written. And so, much like this film for me, the experience of it was so extraordinary, and that I found that a lot of people that came up to me after the film would say a lot of the same things, which were, this film really meant a lot to me because it showcased my little corner of the world. You told our story. And one of the major themes of our production company is doing the same in the future. So I always say this to Brandon, but the role of Fabian will live on with me forever because it's kind of sparked me as being not just an actor, but a true collaborator, and creating a team where I can bring stories to different pockets of the country that feel like they don't have a voice.
Mm-hmm. All right. So you sort of touched on earlier about collaborating with Graham and also Michelle Hurd
Yes.
in the conversations that need to be had not only on somewhere in Montana, but just in living rooms or coffee houses all across this country. What kind of topics did you all kind of touch on that, you know, aren't easy for people on opposing sides to have? And how did it sort of change your mindset?
That's a great question. A lot of the topics that we discussed off screen were really honestly the same ones that we discussed on screen with the words of Brandon Smith. I think honestly what it comes down to is, once you start to let another person in and give them a chance, right, and start to know them and their values, right? Maybe, just maybe, there's a way that you can essentially get past that needing to agree with everything, because you never will. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a great thing that Brandon did with this 10-page scene that Graham and I have, is that we don't agree on everything. And the conversation that we had when we decided on how to go about this scene was very much in that vein. We wanted it to be authentic and organic, and be something that was grounded in a way that spoke to people, where we didn't fall into the traps of being too actory, right? Because this
Yeah.
is a story of the times, in that you don't have to agree with everything. We are two different people at the end of this movie, just like we are at the beginning of this movie. But the real through line, and I think why it's so important just to see it as a viewer, is it gives you that perspective of, wow, these two people hold their ground. Brandon did an amazing job as writing both of them as alphas, so they are alphas of their own domains, we'll say. And they do butt heads at the beginning, and they do go through that thing that we're doing right now, where we instantly judge that person, we instantly cancel that person. I mean, we're human, we're all going to make mistakes, like we're all going to suck sometimes, right? Like, and I think we need to be able to get past the initial just opinion of someone, the initial feeling about somebody. Because once you start to get to know people, and I experienced this off screen to your point, you know, being around the people of Montana, maybe they don't see like politically or socially or religiously the way that I do, even as Matt, but you know, they brought us into their homes and had they opened up to us, and they're good people.
Mm-hmm.
And once you can get past the things that we kind of are fed, unfortunately, sometimes in media and social media, you kind of get to the point where you really see the person. And one of the through lines that I saw in this movie was there is more that can connect us than can ever divide us. And I know that seems impossible to think right now, but I really believe that's so. And I believed it the moment that it's one day on set that I had with Graham and the cast. You know, it was a big scene. It was you know, shot on an active cattle ranch, and the actual cattle ranch owner of the real location was there, David. And it was there's this great picture that I posted on my Instagram, and it's the moment that the story just all made sense to me. And
Mm-hmm.
it's this simple picture. It's not glamorous. We're literally in front of a cattle ranch, right? But it's Brandon, me, kind of like the two directors, we'll say, and Graham and David, the actual owner of the ranch, and Graham really playing like an actual, you know, Montana rancher. And it really just resonated with me because I, at one moment in time, you know, spoke to David, and David is a real rancher. He's very concise with his words, right? And that's really wonderful, right? And it's a family legacy that he's had for multi generations. And I'm a steak eater, right? You know, I eat meat, and you know, I asked David. I said, and he knew what I meant when I asked him this. I said, how do you do this?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because he does. He takes really good care of those animals, but then there comes a time, right? And he looked up at the sun, and I'll just never forget the moment where he really got very emotional. And he looked up at the sun and he said, "Oh, it's still hard."
Yeah.
And that to me is when it all made sense. Because at the end of the day, regardless of anything, we need each other. We need each other. We really do. There are people that can do things that I can't do. There are people that can do things that you can't do. Like, we actually are more interconnected in the ways that we don't almost give credit to sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, when I saw him get emotional, this rancher of his whole life, right? You know, get emotional, look up at the sun, really have that moment where you could see how much he cares about this legacy. It's this movie pays homage to the American dream. It pays homage to the American legacy. It also pays homage to the American spirit and what that means. And if we can dive deep into the American spirit, I really truly believe that there's a path forward for us.
Right. And I love that. I love the American spirit and how we need to get back to leading with humanity and civility instead of um, what divides us, our political beliefs or religious beliefs or sexual orientations. Like, to me, that shouldn't even be brought up. Like, you just get to know the person. You know, find common
Yep.
ground. If someone is suffering, dealing with, you know, everything that we're dealing with in this country right now, like L.A. where you're at, with the
Yep.
wildfires, or you know, the immigration issues, or you know, history being written out of school books. Like, there's just so many different things that you know, is taking place that, you know, just causes division. And instead of just appreciating what we all bring to the table, I think like what you said is the golden rule. Like, we can never put that on the back burner.
Amen.
Um, so with that in mind, you have an interesting upbringing. Like, you grew up in rural Virginia.
Yep.
You was telling me before the interview, um, you know, just how you grew up and who you grew up with. So I want to leave the floor open, let you share a little bit about your childhood and how you grew up.
Yeah. Grew up in rural Virginia, humble beginnings, and you know, two dads really. If I'm gonna be honest, my mom and dad got divorced pretty early on. I was 4 years old, and my mom remarried, a wonderful black man, who became my best friend. I was actually one of the reasons why I felt like my mom married him in the first place, because I remember that day when she asked me, like, should I marry Chaz? And I said, of course you should. He's my best friend.
Hmm.
And I grew up just with him, uh, just protecting me. And I might get a little emotional right now because he passed away a couple years ago, and he was just a rock for me. He was a
Hmm.
constant source of love and protection, and just that knowingness that I had him there, and I miss him immensely. And one of the hardest things that I had to do was, show up on set and in the best way that I could, honor him, because I think that's what good artists do. I remember my teacher in New York City, Terry Schreiber, having a talk back with his friend Alfred Molina, who's a phenomenal actor, and they were talking about Alfred having to use a passing in his family for and he was like, I feel like I should be using this, but I feel guilty about it. And Terry just looked at him and he said, "No, you're an artist. You're honoring him by doing
Hmm.
that, because again, we we act what we know, and we act from who we are." And I felt a lot of Fabian was this maybe loss of a father figure, because he does lose his father. And lucky for me, I mean, in some ways, I had a year to process it before I came to set, because the movie got pushed back a year. We were supposed to shoot it a year earlier, and Chaz passed away the day after my birthday. And it really just destroyed me. And it made me feel like it would have been impossible for me to go and do my job as an actor, because I was just kind of a mess. And I had a year to process that. And when I showed up on set, something really magical happened, because a lot of the actors and the crew uh, also had things that were happening in their lives. Like, a lot of people opened up to me, and I'll let them, tell their stories. But off screen, I felt like we all needed this. And what it brought about under the umbrella of Brandon Smith just giving us this incredible ecosystem of really just experiencing Montana and bringing ourselves fully to the project, whatever that meant to us, gave us some really powerful moments in the story that nobody had expected. I'll pull one, which is my friend Andrew Roa, who is a Native American. He did one of his tribal chants before one of the biggest scenes in the film. We were all in tears even before we got to the lines of the scene, but that was because he brought that to the table. And we were all just so, like, together in that. Like, we really did become a family. And for me, in that same scene, which is a scene that actually is called, a ceremony, which is a Native American ceremony where they give things away to let go of someone that they love, so that they can move forward in this life, not to forget them, but to release them to other people, essentially. Is I wore a pendant in that scene, and it was a tree of life pendant, and Chaz's ashes were in it. So I had him close to my heart in that scene. And that was, a really important thing for me to do. So it was just this extraordinary film. I mean, I always say this, it's like I won in this film just by being a part of it. But the
Right.
message of the film is something that I want people to give a chance to, because I think it's so important right now. And everything that showed up on screen is a product of everybody that brought themselves fully to the project. And you are the sum of your parts, right? And for me, Chaz was such an incredible foundation for me growing up. My dad too. I mean, I jokingly say I have two dads, but I have a mom too. But it was because of that divorce situation that I actually got like a second father in my life. And ironically, Chaz and my dad, Arthur, are were friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there was just this amazing camaraderie that I had growing up that really taught me from a young age what acceptance looked like and what true love looked like, because of just the protection I had from both of my dads. And just to be able to give that back to the film was just an extraordinary experience that I will take with me throughout my life.
Right. Rest in peace, to Chaz.
Thank you.
Well,
Dr. Todd McLean provides periodontal and dental implant services in 2 convenient locations. They offer over a decade of experience treating patients, and appointments can even be scheduled in the evenings, weekends, or early mornings. Give them a call in Chapel Hill at 919-537-9774 or in Durham at 919-484-8338, or visit them online at gumsandimplants.org.
what was he saying to you, like during the filming, like encouraging you to, push forward, or like were there words that was just echoing in your head, that he used to tell you, like to help you push forward? And then follow-up question to that, with the production company, do you plan on developing your story, your relationship with him into a film
My relationship
with Chaz?
yeah. Well, I mean, because he's like a spirit in my life right now, I always, hearken back to the thing that he used to say to me most, which was, "I'm proud of you, son." And he called me son, like from the moment he became my dad. And I just feel him with me. It's nothing specific. It's just the energy that he gives me in my life. The thing that I found in Chaz specifically that I think has really given me the power to do what I love in acting is how passionate he was about food. He was a chef, and he was a great chef, and he could cook anything at any time. And the way that he talked about food, jokingly, he called it food porn. He
Mm-hmm.
just like he would talk about it so lovingly. And I think about the last day that I got to spend with him, because I mean, again, tell your loved ones that you love them. The last day that I got to spend with him was on his front porch in Virginia. He lived on Marriott Ranch. He actually worked at the original Marriott property, Marriott Ranch in Hume, Virginia. And just this beautiful outlook of his front porch, that is a picture that always resonates in my mind, because it was the last night that I spent with him. And, we're watching the sunset. We got high together for the first time. We talked porn, as two adults. He got it out, and we were just smoking and having a great conversation. And I just realized in that moment, like, that so much of the passion that I have for acting is because of how much passion I was surrounded with growing up, hearing him talk about food. And the coolest thing about food is food was for everybody. He would constantly talk about, like, I could make this dish, son, and I could make it 5 different ways. I could elevate it all the way up to $100, or I could make it, $9.99. You know what I mean? And it was like his just love of inclusion of food, his love of nurturing people and teaching people about food and getting them to be excited about food, was captivating. And when I think about, like, who I am as an actor, I think I get those same feelings about telling a good story from Chaz, because he gave me the ability very young to understand how much pride you can take in being passionate about something in life.
All right. All right. So, while you were filming somewhere in Montana, what was like your favorite dish that you ate while in Montana?
Graham and I would go out and get our bison steaks, and we actually went to a lodge there, and it was called the Shoe. We actually went there a bunch, overlooking the lake there. And it was so cool because the managers of the Shoe, shout out to them, they like, had to go to another ranch to get the bison steaks for us. It was something that we wanted to, share together before we left. And yeah, that was a place that we actually had the after party for the premiere of Somewhere in Montana. And the whole town came out, and there was dancing. Like Brandon and Eden, Brandon, the writer director, Eden, the producer, and Joe put on this incredible fireworks display outside of when it got dark out. And again, it doesn't get dark until like 10 o'clock in Montana in the summer. So it was just this really magical night. And I mean, for me, I was bringing gifts to Brandon. I got him this really cool thing that I posted, on my Instagram, and it was this sign of Somewhere in Montana made out of barnwood, and it had basically what is he gave me 2 Irish pennies. Brandon did, because my character has this nervous tick where he rolls an Irish penny. It's like his worry stone, right? And it's something that his grandfather gave him. So it's very important to him to just kind of keep him centered and rub it when he needs to. And, I gave one of those, because he gave me 2, I gave him one of those back to him the last night. And I said, and there's a little carving, a little circle where it pops right in. So he put the coin. And that to me was like, just a gift to show him, like, thank you, first and foremost. Like, you gave me a true gift. And I said that on the back of the sign. Thank you for the role of a lifetime, Fabian Verdugo, Matt Drago, because this role really has. It's given me confidence, but it's also just given me the gift of understanding like why I'm on this planet, and what it is that I've always wanted to do is to leave a couple good stories behind, much like Fabian. Joe Borden, one of the producers, he's literally the funniest guy I've ever met. So I got him a bobblehead statue of Fabian Verdugo, which is of me, which is really funny. I posted that too. And then for Eden, I got her a memory book with all of the pictures, because I think the role of the producer a lot of times, and this is why it was so meaningful to me to give her this, is to wear so many hats at the same time. And Eden did such an extraordinary job of staying calm, even if she wasn't, for all of us, to be the backbone of the production. So I wanted to share all of the memories that spoke to me in our journey together. Because like I said, we'd go on hikes together. We would, go get dinners together. These were the moments, honestly, reflecting on it, that made this such a win in my life. And so I wanted to give those 3 gifts to the 3 people that really created it. And there's a 4th that actually couldn't make it, AJ Young, the cinematographer of this film. When you see it, you will see just the extraordinary job that he did with these long rolling shots. He had these anamorphic lenses that made the picture grand and grainy like a film. And he shot the film within the film differently. So it actually looks different from the real film, so kind of when you're in, Somewhere in Montana's world, or when you're in Montana, A Woman, A Journey, which is Fabian Verdugo's film within the film. And I actually did get him a memory book too, because it's slice of life, right? Those are his frames. And so in his memory book, I added a lot more of we'll say like his work, right? His frames of the movie, and how he was able to capture such a beautiful masterpiece. He's an up and coming star, and I was so grateful to work with him. His work is just extraordinary. So it really did. I mean, from the bottom down, and it usually does start from the top down. There was just this extraordinary like kumbaya nature of this cast and this crew, and I really can't say enough about the crew too. I mean, like, they became my friends, buying them drinks like at the bar at the wrap party. The crews are what make films great, and our film specifically, like we couldn't have done it without the sacrifices that the crew made. It was a very, very small crew. One person, two people, running the sound department. One, two people running the light department, one person packing the truck. Like it was, a couple cameras running. It was a very, very small crew, and what we were able to do with that crew, I mean, I can't thank them enough because they worked nonstop. And I think they did it because at the end of the day, we knew that we were telling a story that was bigger than all of us. And we wanted to tell it proudly. So I say this, and I said it when I wrapped on the film. It was my job as the actor to just take all of this great emotion and feeling that people were giving me and just to simply put it right back in the film. And I think you really see that in the finished product when you see this film.
Right. Talk about your selection process when looking for a role. Like, is it to not be like pigeonholed into a certain look or role? Or are you trying to like reinvent yourself each time? Like, just talk about like your mindset when it comes to your selection process.
Sure. I mean, you have to adapt, right? I mean, every role is a little bit different. Some roles hit a little bit closer to home, as we've discussed today. Fabian is a character that I fell in love with instantly. I think we have a lot in common. So it was really just a legacy piece for me, Matt, in my life. But there are other roles where you kind of have to maybe do a little bit more research, maybe go a little bit more outside of the box. I don't like to limit myself as an actor because I, have gotten to the point where I trust my process, and every actor's process is uniquely different. So I don't really select my roles. I rely on my team. I've got a great agent in Richard John Martin, who is at Ignite Talent Management, Tanya Kleckner at HRI Talent, who, fight for me to get into roles and rooms. And a lot of times, like, again, you're maybe meeting a casting director for the first time, either over Zoom or you're sending them your work. You just want to do a good job because at the end of the day, you don't really have control over what happens past that. But I think the real power that you have as an actor is when you really enjoy the process of bringing yourself to a character. And I spoke to Michelle Hurd about this a lot on set because she is just such a fighter and lover of actors. She's on the board of SAG-AFTRA. And I just admire her and her husband, Garrett, so much, Garrett Dillahunt. And the two of them are just a power couple. And they're a power couple in the way that they advocate and stand behind actors. Garrett was on Project Greenlight recently. They will do really and show up for people. She might even be showing up for my little screening down the street in Newhall next week. It's a testament to just who they are as people. They're special, special people. And we spoke about this, and she said it like this. It's like, every time she gets an audition, it's her opportunity to, put her stamp on it and in, her way, like she's fire, she's like, I get so excited, she gets
Right.
like, she talks with her hands a lot like me. So we get along, and we're two New Yorkers, and we just instantly, I mean, she became like a big sister to me. I just can't say enough special, great things about Michelle. But, I think it's that approach, right? It's like if you have that approach as an actor and you say, listen, I get to be an actor today. I get to put myself on tape. I get to do what I love. Then I think the results of that come from just the genuine joy that you have in doing your job, in doing the work. And then when you get an opportunity like I had with Somewhere in Montana, I mean, I got to be honest, LeTroy, I read the script 3 times before I even put myself on tape for it. Because I genuinely just loved the story. And yes, I mean, I wanted the opportunity to be granted the role if it was meant to be, but I knew that I didn't have control of it. So the best thing that I could do in that situation is do my work, do my job. I shot it with my acting teacher. I worked on it a lot with him. And I shot the scene that I ended up sending to casting just one time. And my acting teacher just made this face, and he was like, and I was like, what does that mean? Because we're in the day of age where you can shoot an audition 10, 20, 40 times if you want to and select the best one and edit it. And he simply said, like, I wouldn't change a thing. Like, you have a very clear take on this character. And if you shot it 2, 6, 10 times, you would just be getting into your head. Your instincts were right. And yes, could you, change a couple things here and there? Could you be directed to try? Absolutely. But you have a very clear take on this character, and I wouldn't ask you to change a thing. And I thought that was really amazing. So I sent that in. A few weeks go by. You don't hear anything because, again, the process of the actor is that you have to give it away and let go and kind of move on to the next. And, just hope that something right will come your way. And a few weeks went by. I was asked to do a producer session with Brandon and Eden and the casting director, Jared Brocksterman. And he brought me on. And it's so interesting that we only did the scene once. We really, honestly, like for me, it was just being so curious about this story and so fascinated by the power of it and having these conversations with the people that were creating it. Maybe was one of the reasons why they went with me, because I honest to God, just felt so passionate about this project. It's what I've always wanted to do. And, again, then you have to let that go, right? Even though you have a great, conversation like we're having today, it's like you kind of have to like move on to, right, the next thing in your life, the next thing in your day today, right? And so I had to move on to the next thing. So a month went by and I didn't hear anything. And then Jared called me out of the blue one day, and it was a very competitive process. He said that there were thousands of submissions for this one and a few producer sessions, and that the role was mine, and it just really, honestly, just gave me such elation, fulfillment, and joy that I was going to get to be a part of this really powerful story. But I got to be honest, the second that I hung up the phone, the first thing that went through my head is it's time to get to work, because there's a lot of work that goes into building the character, and once you're given the role, it's it's an honor, but you have to earn it then, and that's the way I look at it. You can't just make the team and that's it. You have to keep playing every snap. You have to keep making plays, and that's the way I look at it. So I'm a big football guy too, so that's why I went into the football analogy there. But it is true, it's a team sport, and I always say this, it's like you're serving the director, you're serving the writer, you're serving the producers. Like, this is a vision that they were at first, and if you really take that approach to acting and being part of the collaborative process, like, I believe that the roles that are meant to find you will find you.
All right. So with you being the ultimate team player, where can we find Somewhere in Montana? When does it hit streaming platforms or?
Yeah, so it's in theaters as of January 10th. So it's out as we're recording this podcast today, in limited theaters. But we went to Rocky Mountain NATO, which is the National Association of Theater Owners in Salt Lake City. And it's, this week and the next week are really important to see if we can get into even more theaters. Eventually, yes, it will go to streaming and VOD. But, Brandon really wants this to be a conversation starter. He wants people, if they can, if there's a theater nearby that's screening it, to go see it. Because indies really matter right now, more than ever. Human stories matter more now than ever. And so, we understand that we're asking a lot. We're a smaller, film that could. We don't have the multi-million-dollar marketing budget. And so conversations like this, being on shows like yours today, LeTroy, matter because it gets the word out. That way, someone will be willing to, spend their hard-earned $15, $20 to go see our film and bring the family, and maybe afterwards have a little conversation with the person coming out of the theater, and maybe it'll spark just that conversation, that American spirit that I feel like is within all of us right now, that we just need a platform to be able to express that with in a positive way. And so, just look online. I've actually shared on my Instagram what theaters are playing it right now. You can look on my website, mattdrago.com. At the bottom, there's a Fandango link of where it's playing. It's primarily in the Midwest, but we're hoping that it'll branch out a little bit more. And then, yes, it eventually will go to VOD and streaming if a theater is not made accessible nearby to you. But yeah, in terms of how to connect with me for any updates and to find out more about the movie and what's happening, not just with me as an actor, but me as a person. Like, I share, personal stuff too. Give me a follow at Matt Drago, MattDrago. I don't do a lot of social media, really just on Instagram. It's, too much sometimes. So I basically made a link tree there. It's got my IMDb. It's got my websites for both my acting at mattdrago.com, and dragonhunterproductions.com, and my IMDb with my resume. And just follow me there, and you can follow along with my journey and what I've got coming up next.
All right. Well, before we close, Matt, what's something about you that people would find most surprising?
That I am just such a sports fanatic. I think a lot of people think that like actors are just kind of like very centered in, because I brought it up in an analogy. I mean, I was pretty heartbroken last week. The Rams lost, and they played such a great season. They're such an underdog team this year. Les Snead put such a master class in front of us in terms of his drafting this year with Braden Fisk and Jared Verse, Kobe Turner, who actually is originally a Virginia boy, believe it or not. And I just fell in love with this team really early on. I love Matthew Stafford. He's a great ambassador, like Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua and Kieran are such G's, like they're studs. So I think it's my escape, from acting a lot of time. I'm passionate about it because, on the field of play, I see, film as our field of play. And I know I keep harping on it, but it really is a team sport. I mean, like, you are the sum of your parts. Like, it is a 53-man roster. It is the cast and the crew. They are the people that bring it together. And I'm so thankful to be alive in a world where I can express myself through film, where I can be around my people that care about leaving a couple good stories behind. And that's what I hope to do now and in the future of my life here on this planet.
All right. Matt Drago, it's a pleasure. Somewhere in Montana, make sure you lend your support, people. Let's get it into more theaters. Check it out. Have those conversations, those uncomfortable conversations.
Yes.
Show that humanity, that American spirit. And, let's unify. And to you in LA and all of the others, we're continuing to send out prayers, hoping that, the wildfires can come to a screeching halt and, we'll band together and rebuild, one of the cities that I love. So thank you for your
strong,
time.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, LA strong. I honestly, I think one last thing I'll say is LA gets a bad rep. Sometimes we're, seen as a city of dreamers and people that are all about ourselves. I think that these fires and this last couple weeks have really taught me the true morality of this city. Because I think one thing that people discount a lot of times is dreamers are fighters. They're fighters, man, and they'll band together and they'll fight for each other. And this city really does have a lot of character. It's got a lot of great people in it, and I'm proud to call it my home. Again, LeTroy, thank you so much for having me on your show today. It's been a really meaningful conversation for me too. Thanks again. I really appreciate it.
All right. So for Stop, Look, and Listen, I'm your host, LeTroy Gardner. See you next week. Peace and blessings.